What we can do is we'll discuss the stress part today, right? And then while we take up the activity sheet, we can look at both the syllabification and the aspiration part as well, because for both of this, the part on stress is more important than anything else. So let's finish off this one today, which is the last bit from the exercises on collocation. Which is the last part, right? We did both the grammatical and lexical last time, the last class. Today we'll finish off with the lexical. It's a short portion. We'll quickly have a revision on this about what delexicalized is. It's all there on the screen for you. We'll just quickly go through that, look at what it's meant to be a delexicalized verb and the collocation with it. Solve a few questions about, I think, 10 of them, and then move on to the stress part. Okay, so that's going to be the agenda. Because next week I think is going to be the last class, right? You will have your exams the following week. So I think with stress we can, if we discuss the stress part today, then next week with the activity sheet we can maybe close for the semester, and we'll have a good enough of exposure to the important topics for the semester. Right. So let's start off with this. I'm just going to scroll down for you to look at it. You already know what these things are, right? So what was the delexicalized verb? It's also like a thing in the collocation, right? Just like your lexical and grammatical ones. This is also sort of verb that participates in forming collocational pairs. Why is it called delexicalized? Because when they form collocational pairs, this verb do not contribute any meaning to that particular phrase. So most of the meaning of the pair or the collocational pair comes from the noun in that combination. So this is a verb and noun combination, right? Delexicalized verb plus a noun, right? So this is a noun and a verb plus noun combination wherein the verb doesn't contribute towards the meaning, right? No matter what it is. There are six of them, most commonly used the lexicalized verb. We discussed this also. What were they? Could you try and answer some of them for me? The first one is have, as you see on the screen. The others could be, what are a few other delexicalized verbs? People who were there in the previous session, at least you can try and answer. What were they? No? No one? First one is have. You have five more. Can you try and answer? Right. So does that mean you don't know or do you don't understand the question? Can you like talk to me? There's Suhail, there's Shreyash, and there's Ahmad and all.
We don't know.
One could be take.
One could be safe, right? And then people who are saying you don't know, is this your first class or something? Have you been attending this session? Yeah, this was not from the last session though. Okay, yeah. I don't want to waste much time talking about it. Yes. So have, take, uh, anything else? You have also give, then you have go, right? Then you have make, and there's one more. It's do. Okay, so most commonly the delexicalized verbs are these have, take, give, go, make, do. Some people these days also use the verbs set and put also, but they're not as commonly used as the six of them here, right? So have, take, give, go, make, do. These are the more commonly used, um, delexicalized verbs, right? So I've just put up it on the screen. So I have no plans to go over it again since already this is discussed in the previous session. So just we'll just go through what is on the screen to understand how they are used, okay, or what kind of nouns are used when you have these delexicalized verbs. So particularly with have, right? Now I cannot tell you why, because when I say delexicalized, it means that these verbs are not going to contribute towards the meaning, right? So when I say something like have a break, right? So it simply means that the person is going to, take a break, or is going to be off for some time. So the verb have itself does not contribute towards the meaning. It just sits there to satisfy certain, syntactic requirements. That is, it sits there to satisfy the structural requirement, but it does not give its meaning. The meaning of the word have is not a part of this collocation. That is what delexicalize means, right? This is for the people who have not been part of this class before, right? So with have, then usually the combinations that you find with the noun combinations that you find with have includes food and drinks, right? For example, have a cup of tea, have a glass of juice, okay? Or the act of talking, have a chat, right? In have a chat simply means speak to someone, right? Have particularly the meaning of the word have is not a part of it, especially even when you say have a glass of juice, have its meaning is not encoded in that location. It just sits there to, like I said, satisfy the structural requirement. Third category of nouns that you can use with have would be nouns that are related to the act of washing. So have a wash, right? Have a wash. Have a wash is another way of saying, asking someone to take a shower. Okay. Fourth kind would be any sort of disagreements, nouns that are related to disagreements. So have a fight, have a brawl, have a struggle, so on and so forth. And the last kind of nouns that can be formed along with, paired along with the lexicalized verb have would be any act that is related to resting, right? So have a break. There are a few examples that I have written down to show you how it works. So look at this. Have breakfast, have lunch, have dinner. Now, if you notice here, in the previous example, have a cup of tea, have a glass of juice, we use the article a, right? But that article is missing in have breakfast, have lunch, have dinner. Remember this, we never use articles with breakfast, lunch, and dinner, right? But any other kind of food and drinks that you want to specify, it will definitely take either the article a and or the, right? This is one difference that we need to keep in mind. Then have tea, have juice, right? Have a discussion is related to which kind of noun? Talking, right? So like have a chat, we can say have a discussion, right? Have an argument is related to the fourth kind, this one, disagreement. So have a fight, have a disagreement. They are both related. Okay, so this is how you can classify the combinational pairs that can appear with the delexicalized verb have. Okay, now we'll move on to the next one, right? Like you mentioned, take. Take has just two categories of nouns which can form pairs with it. One is related to the act of resting, and the other is related to the act of washing. So, example, take rest, take a bath, right? Now, more examples here. Take turns, take a turn, take care, take the trouble, take a chance, take a risk, take a decision, take a photograph. Right? All of them can be associated with these are commonly seen expressions with take. Can you tell me what is the difference between something like take a decision and something like take rest? Is there any difference between them, or can they also be considered as collocational verbs? Right? This is not like a just trying to understand if you can make the difference between the usage. When I say something like take rest or take a bath, is it different from, do you think there's any difference in the way we use the verb take in these two expressions, that is take rest or take a bath, and something like take the trouble or take a chance? Which one do you think is more collocation? Take rest. And why is that the case? Take a bath and take rest both would be collocation. And why would that be? This is connected to the discussion that we had in the first session, right? When we introduced collocation. Because something like take a turn, take the trouble, these are what they're not collocations, right? Because the flexibility is
Ma'am, we are not able to hear anything.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, no?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, okay, thank you. Right, there's something wrong with my other device. Right, so, were you able to hear about what we spoke of? No, we're talking about Go, no? So, because I don't remember exactly where the audio got cut off, right? Um, take rest. Oh, that is where we were. Oh, right, right. Just give me a moment. So from here, you haven't been able to hear. Okay, so quickly on this one, uh, give again, I think all of these that we see around as a part of the, nouns that can form combinations with give include noises, facial expressions, the act of hitting, affectionate actions, and the act of talking, right? So examples for the first category, that is noises, would be um, give a cry, right? Then um, give a scream, give a shout, they all belong to one category. With facial expressions, you have the example, give a smile or something that you see, give a look, give a glance, right? Then the act of hitting, give a kick, right? Give a blow, give a push. These are other two examples. Affectionate actions, give a hug, give a kiss, give a stroke. And then for the last one, it's the act of talking with give, you have give an answer or give a lecture, give a talk, give an information, so on and so forth, right? The next category, which is make, again, two categories, talking and sounds, which means any nouns that are related to the act of talking or sounds in general can be used to form a collocation with the delexicalized verb make, right? And what additional category do you have? The nouns that are related to planning. So for the first category, you can have something like make a sound or make a noise, make a suggestion, right? And the second one could be make a plan, make a date, make an appointment, so on and so forth. Go, this could be not something that is used very commonly among non-native speakers, right? Although this is like a very, very common expression among the native speakers of English, right? So activities that are commonly, and by common activity, I mean, day-to-day activities, right? And there's one specific structural thing there. This verb should be usually ing forms, right? Ing verbs for common activities. Basically, I should have said ing nouns or other word for it is gerund, right? Because I was not sure if everyone would be familiar with that term. I just put it as ing verb. What I mean is nouns which have the ing suffixes, right? For example, the one that you see on screen, cycling, walking, swimming, running, these kind of day-to-day activities or common activities usually take the delexicalized verb go with it. So go cycling, go walking, go swimming, go riding, um, go shopping, right? These are all examples of that. And then you have the second category, which is the verbs that have something to do with moving. Generally, verbs that are associated with movement. So example, go for a stroll, go for a swim, right? Or go for a walk, right? It will have an additional preposition with it. Yet the delexicalized verb that forms a combination with that would be the verb, right? So go, cycling, walking, etc. The ing gerund form of the noun, and then the other part, generally the verbs that are related to movement, right? Like stroll, swim, walk, right, ride, etc. Go for a ride. That is also an example. Okay, so that's the second last delexicalized verb. And the last one is do. Okay, so similar to go, you will also have uh, the ing nouns, right? Like we saw in the previous case. So do the cooking, do the washing, do the cleaning, right? Here all that ing words that you say, they look like verbs, but they are what? They're actually nouns, right? Do the shopping, do the cleaning, do the cooking, do the washing. All of these are nouns. So one category is just like go, do can also appear with the ing nouns. And other nouns that is related to work. Okay? Usually nouns that are related to work can also form collocation with the delexicalized verb do. So example, do the homework or do the assignment, do the chores, right? These are examples for that. And then one more last category, the nouns which, when it is obvious what the action is, okay? Obvious form of actions, okay? Words related to obvious form of actions, like do my hair, right? Uh, do my chores, right? All of those are also the category of nouns that can be associated with do, right? So I think we have covered all of, yeah, do the dishes, correct? That's also right answer. So I think we've covered all the verbs, right? I mentioned them here. So have, take, give, go, make, and there's one more, do, right? These are the 6 delexicalized verbs that we English for collocations, right? Okay, so if you have understood that, and I mean, you'll understand it better when you do the exercises. I hope you have understood the concept now, right? Yeah, so examples for you, do the drawing, do the dishes, like you mentioned, do the hair. Right? We have a few sentences, about I think 10, 15, okay, 20 of them. So we'll take them up and see what answers you can get for this and understand the delexicalized verbs better. Options are just these, okay, all 6 verbs that you see here. If you want, I can like repost it in the chat, but you have to choose the options among these verbs only, because these are the 6 the lexicalized verbs that we use for collocation in the English language. So you have to see which combination of this would be the right one. Now that you know what each of them are used with, which category of nouns they can form collocation with, I think you can start looking at the sentences, right? The first one, make sure you dash a look at the engine before you buy the car. Okay, take a look. Any other answers? In the previous sessions, people had another answer also. Take is correct. Take a look is the answer, but any other have. So what's the difference between have and take? You're all right. There's Ahmad and Ashok, you're right. Have is also an option. So what's the difference between using take and have? So have, when you use have or look, this is more of a, there's a difference in, the difference is basically rooted in the difference of the variety of English. So using have, right, it's more of an American usage. The American variety English uses have more commonly than take. Take is like a British variety. Uh, Another explanation for this is also that have is more of a informal usage, right? Phrasal verbs are, these kind of usages are usually considered as considered common in the spoken discourses, in the spoken language. But even among take a look and have a look is considered to be more informal, less formal as compared to take a look, right? Two differences. One is of the difference of the variety of English, and one is of the difference of formality. Generally, British English is considered a little more formal. It leans a bit more towards the formal side than the American variety. Okay. Okay. Next one. They never fail to dash us a welcome when we go there. They never fail to give us a welcome. Okay. When we go there, all right. Third one. Saturday is my day for dash jobs around the house. Doing, okay, doing jobs around the house. So do, right? Correct. So one more thing now, because we are discussing verbs here, right? I think I have made this point clear while we were looking at phrasal verbs also. Now, no matter what, but these verbs are only de-lexicalized. Right? They are not de-grammaticalized. Right? Which means if there are changes related to tenses or agreement or anything, then that change or modification will reflect on the verbs. Like in this case, doing jobs around the house. Right? Do the jobs around the house is not how you uh, look at it. Right? So all these modifications and inflections, they will reflect on these verbs because they are verbs. Verbs are the part of the sentence which allow for these kind of modifications to make the sentence grammatical. So that is applicable in this case also, just like it was for the verbs in the phrasal verb complex as well. Right? So be mindful of that. Tense, aspect, agreement, everything will have to be taken care of by the verb. It's just that semantically, that is meaning wise, it doesn't contribute. But grammatically, it will do its job, right? Rather, it has to do its job. Okay, fourth one, the housing committee are dash priority to the elderly. Okay, to give priority or give a priority that has been modified to giving priority to the elderly. Okay, okay. Fifth one, the moment we met, we dash a dislike to each other. We dash a dislike to each other. Yes, took a dislike to each other, right? This is an important phrase for you to know, right? Took a dislike. Okay. The moment we met, we took a dislike to each other. Sixth one, I told her I ran in the marathon. I'm not going to dash any promises like that again. Like that again. Correct. So make a promise is a collocational pairing with seventh one. She's always dashed an interest in current affairs. She's always dashed an interest in current affairs. Taken, right? Not taking. Yeah, your choice is correct, but taken, right? She is always uh, not having. If you're using the verb have, then you'll have to use its past form. That is, she has always had an interest in current affairs. That's correct, right? Not having. She's always taken an interest in current affairs. Is the right. Okay. So if you're using have, then had, not having. And if it's take, then taken, right? The participle form in both cases. We'll have to use that. It firstly dash an impression on the audience. Is that she is or she has? Yeah, you tell me. It can be she is or
Excuse me,
she
ma'am.
has. Whatever it is not going to change. Right? She's always had an interest. It has to be she has, not she is, right? Because it's the participle form. So it's basically has taken or has had. So the apostrophe S stands there for has, not is. Okay, so right. Made is always, sorry, for singing, made an impression on the audience. So, make an impression. Okay, maybe one more answer that you can use here. Has, no, not has. Had an impression, no. Had an impression is rarely a usage. What do you usually do with impression? Leave. You leave an impression, right? So the answer has to be a singing left an impression on the audience, right? But okay, so in the case of delexicalized verb, can it be? No, it does not. It is not has, definitely, Ashok. We can't use have here, have an impression on the audience. Yeah, make is something that we can use here. So singing made an impression on the audience. Made because you have to follow the tenses. Okay? Correct. The next one, dash the handle, a twist, and the door should open easy. Dash the handle, a twist, and the door should open. Yeah, give the handle a twist and the door should open. Right? Give. Okay. 10th one. I don't know the answer, so I'll dash a guess. Dash a guess. What is the verb here? Okay. Take, okay, let's say take is the answer. I don't know the answer, so I'll take a guess. No. What is the answer? Make. I'll make a guess. Yeah, correct. Now it's correct. I'll make a guess. Okay, I don't know the answer, so I'll make a guess. 11th one, everyone else was dash notes in the lecture, but forgotten my turn. Making, right? Not taking, making notes in the lecture. Okay, making notes in the lecture, but I had forgotten my pen, right? Um, Take note has a very different connotation in English. Okay, take note is a phrasal verb. It's a different meaning. It should be making notes in this case. 12th one, Shama would dash a speech tomorrow. Yeah. Okay. Give any other answers? Do you think any other answers are possible? Yeah, that you have to tell me. Yeah. Yeah, you can say usually what you use in the common context is say something like give a speech, but a more formal version of that would be make a speech. Which is uh, Shama would make a speech tomorrow, or Shama would give a speech tomorrow. Give has become now more acceptable, so it's not wrong, but originally it used to be make a speech, right? So any of this should be fine. They're not wrong. Give because now it has become very common in expressions. So it's sort of accepted, but the ideal form is make a speech, right? Okay. 13th one, Tarun will dash a presentation on artificial intelligence and the new medicine. Make, yeah, make a presentation, correct. You were wrong in dash a leave without any intimation. You should dash an apology. First blank, you were wrong in dash a leave. Yes, taking a leave without any intimate, correct. And then you should dash an apology. Again, the same question pops in here. Yeah, make an apology. That's the right one, right? Don't write give an apology. You should give an apology is not the right usage. You should make an apology. Now, 15th one, he dash running every morning. He dash running every morning. No, running. Goes. Correct. He goes running every morning. Okay, go run. So goes running every morning. I am busy today. 16th one. Will you dash the do the cooking? Yeah, correct. Do the cooking. 17th one. Let's dash shopping at the weekend. What do you say? Go. Correct. Let's go shopping at the weekend. What do you say? 18th one. I may dash horse riding with my cousin this Friday. Go. Again, go. Right? I may go horse riding with my cousin this Friday. Have you dashed your teeth well? Have you dashed your teeth well? Done. Right, correct. So have you done your teeth well? So this is do and then your obvious actions, right? A part of obvious, like do the dishes, do the hair. do your teeth. So done your teeth well. I'm heading to the salon to get my hair. What's the answer for that one? That's also done. Right? So I'm heading to the salon to get my hair done. Okay. I think that's all. I hope you've understood how to use this the lexicalizers, right? Any questions on this? I'll start off with the stress patterns in a minute or so. If you have any questions on this one, we can spend about another 1 minute on that. Then we'll go on to stress. Anything? Any questions that you have on?
Ma'am, I have a question.
Ashok, are you speaking? I'm not able to hear you.
Yes, ma'am, I have a question. Can you hear me?
How about others? Are you guys able to hear her? Yes. Okay. These are the problems. Okay, so just give me a minute. Okay. Uh, Ashok, did you hear me? Were you able to listen to the answer?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Oh, all right. I did not realize that I got muted. Okay, so I was saying that there's no much of a difference between these two. Uh, they, the only thing is that when you have the ing form, you just have a specific name of the activity because this is a gerund, right? You can name it individually, like swimming or dancing or running, so on and so forth. Go for a is a phrasal complex. Right? Meaning wise, there's no much of a difference. But it's just that swimming or anything with an ing can be used to refer to the name of an activity, which you cannot do with the other. Meaning wise, it would mean the same. Like go swimming or go for a swim, same thing. Okay. All right. Okay, so shall we then move on to the stress part? I think we'll discuss a little bit. I'll show you the slides on that, and then we can maybe take up the activity sheet next week. Okay. No questions from this side? Okay. All right. Just give me a moment. I'll stop presenting this one and share the other thing with you. Right. You can see the screen clearly, right? I hope you can. Uh, right. So we're going to discuss a little bit on the stress patterns in English. This is a very important thing when you consider the uh, other properties, particularly physical properties like aspiration or even syllabification. Right. So this helps you in both of that. We'll discuss on the aspiration and the syllabification thing in the next class when we are doing the activity. There's nothing much to talk about them. They're very fairly simple concepts, but stress requires a little bit of attention, and it requires a little bit of practice as well. It doesn't come that easily to a lot of people, but 80%, 85% of the words in the English language, they follow the stress rules or the patterns that we are going to discuss now. Rest of them, they probably are not, they cannot be fit within this particular stress rules or patterns that we have here because of various reasons, right? So remember that English is also a language which has heavily borrowed from other languages, right? So there is Latin influence, there's French influence, the Scandinavian influence, right? A lot many languages of the time, even today, influence the English language, and hence a lot of words that you find within the language, since it's not native to itself, it could follow a different stress pattern from what this rules can fit it within, right? So there are, because of these reasons, certain aberrations or certain kind of deviations from the rules in certain words, but that doesn't discredit the overall rules which an 80 to 85% of the lexicon or words in the language follows, right? So because of this reason, because it's a pattern that you see in the words and their pronunciation in English, it's important that you know the stress and its patterns in English language. It's a stress timed language, English, right? So we look at the rules one by one. There aren't many rules, right? If you look at it carefully, as a beginner, probably you would feel like there are a lot of them. Actually, there's just 5 or 6 of it, and we are done. The problem is only when it comes to suffixes. You might have to know that certain suffixes they bring about change in the stress pattern of the word, and there are the others do not affect the stress at all, right? So only that part becomes a little tricky because you might have to remember what those suffixes are. Um, Otherwise, it's a fair and simple rule for the stress, right? So the first rule that's associated with the stress marking is in connection with monosyllabic words. Now, what are monosyllabic words? Words which have just one syllable, right? Examples: T, I, trip, okay? What else? Key. These are all examples of monosyllabic words. And these are words which have just one syllable, right? Alternatively, words which have just one vowel sound, right? Key has just one vowel sound, E, right? Trip has again just one vowel sound, the short E, right? I has two actually, so it has a bit long. We keep that out. Yet it is a monosyllabic word. It doesn't have two syllables. That's a different question we want to address that in. But the point is, most of the words with just single syllables or one syllable or just one vowel sound, they usually have the stress on the vowel sound itself. There are two, positions to this. There are people who say that there's no stress in monosyllabic words. There are people who would say that there is a stress and that stress is on the vowel sound, right? So for our purposes, we are going to take the second, uh, you know, uh, part of the debate, which is the stress is on the vowel itself. So in a word like key, K-E-Y, key, the stress is on the vowel sound E, right? No matter, how many syllables the word has, whether it has one syllable or two syllable, remember that the stress is always on the vowel of the stress syllable, right? So in a word like, let's take a two-syllable word. Let's say uh, record, right? R-E-C-O-R-D, right? Record as in the noun record, right? Where is the stress in record? On the first syllable, right? So whether the stress is on the first syllable or the second syllable, what is actually being stressed the vowel sound alone, right? Do you know what stress means? I think one of the live sessions when somebody had a question, I did tell them what stress is. But do people here understand what stress is? Any idea? What is it actually that we mean by stress? Or, don't think along the lines of what you have heard in the lecture. When you stress on a word or stress on something, what do you usually do? Huh? Say it firmly, correct? Yeah. So basically, you say it firmly. I'll define firmly or forcefully in a bit more simpler terms. You're right, Emma. But to put simply across, stressing on something means saying that particular thing. Yeah, emphasis again, same thing. So what do we mean by emphasis, right? These are all abstraction for the physical thing that you do when you're stressing, emphasizing, forcefully saying it, firmly saying it. Longer duration, yes, that is one aspect. So that particular part of the thing that you want to, anything that you want to emphasize on, anything that you want to stress on, what we typically do with it is you say that for a bit longer than the other part, and you say that a bit louder than the other part. So louder and longer. That is what stress means. Okay, simple. Physical property, if you are classifying it as a physical thing, then longer and louder is what. And longer is relative, okay? It doesn't, all that we say here, including short vowel, long vowel, they're all relative. Relative means in comparison to the other parts, this is a bit longer. It doesn't mean that short E doesn't mean you say seat or be, right? So it is, the difference is sit and seat. It could be a fraction of seconds, yet a bit longer, a bit louder than the other, right? So similarly, stress is longer as well as louder in comparison to the other parts in the word. That is basically stress. So in a monosyllabic word, that stress is on the single vowel sound that is available on the word. So key, like so in key, the stress is on the vowel sound E, which is the only present vowel sound. Okay. Now, as far as the notation is concerned, where do you place the stress mark word? You place it right before the part that is stressed, right? Right before the syllable that is stressed. So if the syllable starts with a consonant sound, then it is placed before the consonant sound. If it starts with a vowel sound, then you place it before the vowel sound. Right? The point is you place that notation mark right before the syllable that is stressed. Okay, so that's about the notation. There are different ways of representation, but the actual way of doing it is to put a notation mark or a prime mark as it is called. But in your exam, sometimes what they do is they give the stress syllable in bold letters or in capital letters. That is because probably they think that you're not familiarized with the actual notation for it. But remember, whatever the notation is used, the stress is actually when represented, it's right before the uh, stress syllable. Okay, so understood this point on monosyllabic, right? In words with single syllable, the stress is on the vowel itself, that one vowel sound that you have in the word. Okay, moving on. This is an important part, right? As far as stress is concerned. how many vowels are there in English language? Vowel sounds. There are 44 phonemes or 44 sounds, out of which how many are vowels? How many of them are vowels? 20, right? So in all the 20 vowel sounds that we have here, there's one vowel sound which is unstressed, and that's the unstressed vowel sound is shva. Okay, it looks like an inverted, laterally inverted E, right, when presented in the IPA form. This appears in the words such as sofa, right? In sofa, it appears at the end of the word, that is the, or, fa, and The last sound that you hear in the word sofa is the shwa sound. Right? This is a vowel, again, one of the 20 vowel sounds, but its speciality is that it is an unstressed vowel. Vowels are generally stressed, no matter whether they're diphthongs or monophthongs, that's pure vowel or diphthongs. They're always stressed, except for this one vowel. Okay, this is an unstressed vowel. Why are we discussing this? Because if this appears as a part of the syllable that you are trying to, if in the word that you have, for example, you have a word like sofa to, answer in the exam, right? And somebody asks you, where is the stress? Right? This is a monosyllabic word, but maybe this, let's look at, let's take the example arise, right? Lazy vowel sound. Lazy vowel sound. Okay, yeah, whatever names you want to call it, you can. Point is, it is unstressed, right? So if you look at the example like arise, right? How many syllables does this word have? Arise. A-R-I-S-E, rise. How many syllables? How many vowel sounds? How many vowel sounds does the word arise have? Two, yeah, right? Two. So one is a and the other is I, right? I is a diphthong, but yet it's also vowel sound, right? Diphthongs are also vowels. So two vowel sounds. Now out of this, one is shwa. The first one that you hear in rise, the first one is a shwa sound, the unstressed vowel. Why is it important? Now, arise, when you are marking the stress for it, you should know that it cannot be ever on the first syllable because the first syllable is simply the vowel sound shwa, the unstressed vowel sound up. It can never take stress on itself. So automatically, then the stress has to fall on the second syllable, which is rise. Okay, so this is why knowing the unstressed vowel sound is important, particularly in polysyllabic words, right? In words which has three or more than three syllables. If anywhere in the syllable, if even one syllable among the three or four of the syllables that you have in that word, if you have the unstressed vowel sound in any one of those syllables, then you can leave out that syllable for looking for stress because it will definitely not take any stress, right? That's the point why we need to discuss this. So words like sofa, emphasis. So after fur, the sound that comes after fur is basically the schwa sound, right? Emphasis, right? I am saying it, I'm articulating it a little more so that I can bring out the distinction. In fact, when you speak in English, no, it is barely heard. Like Ahmed was saying, it's said with minimal effort or it's lazy. All this means that you can barely hear it when people actually speak in spontaneous speech in the English language, right? Sofa, emphasis, right? Rise, round, go, teacher, brother, right? So not brother, brother, teacher, father, right? You can barely hear the last part. It's just said and left, just like that. So this part is important because it does not participate in the stress marking in English. So who's this Anand? Be ready? Your hands are raised. Um, you can ask your question, but the problem is I'm not able to hear. There's no output for me today for some odd reason. So if you can leave the question in the chat, I think I can respond. Sorry for that. There's some technical glitch on this side. Okay. Right. So I hope you understood that. We'll move on to the next one. If you have questions, please, ask them. I can correct it for you. Now, the fourth part is about prefixes, right? So we know that we are dealing with words. So words are going to have prefixes and suffixes, With suffixes, we definitely know that there are certain stress rules that we need to keep in mind. Prefixes, usually they don't participate in the stress marking, but um, in certain cases, particularly in cases like when there's a prefix or noun or an adjective, then there can be a minimal participation. In verbs, if you see prefixes, right, like misconceive or outbreak, these kind of um, prefixes, if you see in verbs, usually they don't participate in stress because verb is a very powerful element. It has a capacity to pull on all the weight of the syllable itself. So mostly the prefixes that appear with verbs, right, they do not participate in stress marking. But nouns and adjectives, some of them can, cause a shift. But in general, prefixes, their participation in the stress marking or stress forming in the English words are very minimal. Okay. So prefixes are often stressed in nouns, less often in verbs. If there's a prefix in an adjective, stress often falls on the first syllable of the root after the prefix, right? Which means that again there is no participation. If it falls on the first syllable of the root after the prefix, it basically means that the stress falls on the word itself, right? Instead of saying the stress falls on the word itself, another way, they just put it in a complicated way saying that falls on the first syllable of the root after the prefix. First syllable of the root after the prefix is the word itself, right? So only in case of certain nouns, then the prefixes can participate in stress. I'll show you that if we have an example. But in general, keep in mind, prefixes do not bring about much of a change in the stress pattern. Okay. Now, disyllabic words and the rules. We'll just stop in a while, another 2 minutes. I'll show you the disyllabic word rule for both this thing, a disyllabic and trisyllabic one, and we can stop. Suffixes we can take up in the next class and then continue to the okay. So, two-syllabic nouns and two-syllabic adjectives, they take their stress on which syllable? The first syllable. Okay. Yes. So the two-syllable nouns and the two-syllable adjectives, right? They usually take the stress on the first syllable itself. But two-syllable verbs, they take the stress on the second syllable, right? Like there are examples where you can look at them. Dislike, misplace. Now, what are this and miss here? What are this and miss here? They're prefixes. So do you see that they are not participating in the stress, right? They're out. There is nothing that is marked on them. The stress is in fact marked on the actual word, the root word. So this is what it meant, what I meant by saying generally the prefixes don't participate in any sort of, stress marking. So although that is the case, when you take the word dislike, it is a two-syllabic word and it's also a verb, right? So by rule, again, it satisfies both the condition. In verbs, usually the second syllable is what is stressed. In this case, that is also satisfied. And if you ask me why is it the case in this particular words, dislike and misplace, I would say that it's because the first part is basically a prefix, right? But even in the absence of the prefixes, usually the marking is always on the second syllable, right? Look at a word like imagine. Imagine. Where do you think would be the stress in this word? Imagine. Okay, how many syllables were imagine? Three, right? So stress has to be on which one? If it's imagine is a verb, right? To imagine. So it's on the second syllable, which is ma, right? Imagine. So stress is on the second syllable ma, right? Usually for verbs, 85% of the verbs in English, two-syllabic verbs or three-syllabic, whatever they are, the stress is always on the second syllable in verbs. But in nouns and adjectives, usually the stress is always on the first syllable. Okay. There are certain differences in this. Like for example, look at that word that you see on screen here, right? Career, training, complete, extreme, right? Here, where is the mark? Stress marking. So career and trainee, both of them are what? They are nouns, right? So by rule, actually, they should have been marked on the first syllable. but they are marked on the second syllable here. Why so? The reason is both of these words, they have a long vowel. So whenever there's a long vowel in the word, long vowels have a tendency to shift the stress to themselves. They are weighty, right? They are more weighty when compared to other syllables because they have a long vowel, right? Remember, vowel is the thing that is stressed in a syllable, right? So any syllable which has a long vowel in it, it will be more weighty, and the stress will have to fall on that. Naturally, you can look at it. When you say a word like, even without I telling you all these rules, when you say a word like career or training, there's a natural tendency to stress on the second one, right? Because it's a long vowel. So, in cases where you have long vowels like this, the stress is automatically pulled onto the syllable with the long vowel, which is why even though career or training, both of them are nouns, they have the stress not marked on the first one, but on the syllable with the long vowel. Okay? Training, career. Same is the case for the adjectives complete and extreme. Okay, both complete and extreme has long vowels, right? So automatically the stress is then pulled to the syllable with more weighty, more lengthy vowel, right? Same is the case with that as well. Okay, any questions? I hope you've understood that. Good, good enough. Okay. Now, the last thing for today is the rules for the trisyllabic words. So, no much of a change. Okay. On trisyllabic words, nouns, again, the usual rule is that they're stressed on the first syllable. But when we talk about trisyllabic words, trisyllabic nouns and adjectives, it also means that, we are also looking at the possibility of having suffixes for these words. Okay. The moment we have more than two syllables in a word, the possibility of the word having a suffix, the prefix in it is very, very high, right? Particularly in the case of nouns and adjectives. So when the suffixes come into the scene, the rules can shift a little bit. But in the absence of the suffix, again, the same rule applies to trisyllabic words also. That is trisyllabic nouns and adjectives, just like the disyllabic ones take the stress on the first syllable. Okay. Only in the presence of certain suffixes, this rule can change. And what are those suffixes that we'll discuss in the next class. But base rule is that the given word is a noun or an adjective, no matter what the number of syllables are, right, 2 or 3 or 4 or whatever, the automatic stress pattern or the automatic stress marking has to be on the first syllable. But if there are suffixes which can bring about a change to it, then that is very significant. Okay. And with verbs again, three-syllabic verbs, what happens? The stress falls on the first syllable. Okay, so that we'll discuss with the examples. The stress marking on the verbs are not as important as compared to nouns and adjectives, right? So as a rule, you need to understand the rules related to nouns and adjectives because they form the largest part of the lexicon in English, right? Now, we look at the examples that we have here. Look at particularly the example of photograph. Right? This is to explain how the stress pattern changes when the word adds suffixes to it. Right? So the first word is photograph. Right? Where is the stress on this word? Simple one. Right? So graph. So the three syllables here, and then the stress is on in photograph. What is the stress? You still with me, guys? Yeah, the first one, the first syllable, right? So, oh, that's the first one. So your stress is going to be on the first syllable, which is pho. But when it goes to the second one, photography, what has happened to the word photograph now? You have added what? The Y suffix, right? There's a suffix now with the second one, photography. Where has the stress moved to? From the first, it has moved to the second syllable. You see that? Yeah. right? Just move to the second syllable. Now, as you come to photographic, what has happened here? Any change? It's still on toe, but what's the reason here? Sorry, it's not on toe, it's on the third syllable now, right? Graph, that is, right? The third syllable. Right. So you can either say this is the third syllable, or you can also say this is the second last syllable, right? Or penultimate. That is another term that you use to refer to second last, right? So the more commonly used term in phonology is second last, right? So ik or ic is the suffix which can influence the stress in such a way that it can pull the stress to the second last syllable or the syllable right before the suffix ic. This is not the only suffix. We'll discuss the other suffixes which can do that, right? So from photograph to photographic, the stress is moved from first to second to the second last. So this change happens particularly because of the addition of certain suffixes, right? This was the point I was trying to make. So with uh, nouns and adjectives which have more than two syllables, this is a very common thing to see that as the suffixes are added, the stress also changes. Okay. Specific suffixes and how do they change and where do they push the stress to, that we'll discuss in next class. Is this much understood? I think I want to stop for today. We have overshot the time. I guess I've not disturb your schedule. I'm sorry for that, but this much was needed so that we can wind up, more properly in the next class. Okay. So look at this rules, revisit the rules again in the lecture. If you haven't understood, let the questions please see. We'll take up the rest of the rules, right? Particularly with reference to suffix and the questions in the next class. Okay, all right. Okay. Fine. See you again then next week, which would be the last class for the semester. I hope you can make it to the class. See you all again next week. Okay. Yeah. Thank you. See you all. No, we won't have audio-based questions, Ashok. No questions.